Hello everyone, welcome to Microsoft SQL Server tutorial. I'm a trainer of Uplatz. In today's tutorial, we are going to discuss about views and then types of views. So what are views and why these views are used in the SQL Server? Views are similar to the table, but still there are some differences between table and then views. Then instead of tables, why we are going for the view? What is the use of view and what are the different types of views and how can we create these views in the SQL Server? All these topics we are going to cover in today's tutorial. So let's start the tutorial. Views. View is a window of virtual table which will allow related users to view and modify related data. So we call view as a virtual window. Even we call it as a virtual table. And it allows the users to view and modify related data. What it is? It allows users to view and modify the related data. That is, there are many columns present in the table and we want to work on particular columns in the table. In that time, what we are going to do is we are going to create the view on the table where we are going to use the columns that are required for our operation. And then we are going to modify the data. That is, we are going to pick the columns that are required for generating the report or any other kind of task. So that is why view is a window of virtual table which will allow related users to view and modify related data. So any modifications are made through a view will reflect on base table and vice versa, which leads to a data consistency. So this is very important point where we are going to make any changes to the view, then the view will reflect on base table and vice versa. So view and the base table both are interrelated. That is what we have to understand here. View and then base table both are interrelated. So whatever the changes we are going to make on the view, that will be reflected on the base table as well. What is a base table? Base table is a table that is used to create the view. The columns from which table we are going to pick, that table will be considered as a base table. So what we have to understand here is whatever the modifications are made through a view, it will also reflect on the table. That is the table from which we are deriving the columns and vice versa. And which leads to a data consistency. That is, if we are updating any rows or columns in the base table, that will be reflected on the view as well. That is, the view that is associated with the base table will also get updated. So this one we have to remember when we are creating a view. A view is a database object which resides in database server and stores only select query in compiled format. Hence, it is called stored query. A view is what? A view is a database object. As we all know, we call table, triggers, procedures, cursors, functions. All these things we call it as a database objects. Likewise, even we are considering view also a database object, and it resides and view resides in database server, stores only select query in compiled format. Hence, it is called as a stored query. Okay, it stores the select query in the compiled format. Due to this reason, we call the view as a stored query. Now, what are the advantages of views? Advantages of using views is it provides security, improves the performance of a query, and network traffic gets reduced, shortens SQL queries, supports to perform data manipulation language, that is DML operations on related data, support to generate summarized reports fastly. These are the advantages of using the views. But here, provides security means what it is. That is, we are going to access limited number of columns to the base table. From the table, we are going to derive only limited number of columns. That is fine. But here, the view can be used only by the user who are having the privileges to access the view. That is why view provides the security and it improves the performance of a query. How performance is related with the query? How a performance is related with the view? Performance is related with the view because we are not going to access all the columns from the table. We are going to access only the related columns from the base table. So obviously, when we create a view with related columns, then the performance of the view will be improved. It improves the query performance because it is going to fetch the columns from the table. What columns? Only related columns only. It is going to fetch it from the table. So there we are going to save the time. Network traffic gets reduced. How a network traffic gets reduced? So basically, many queries hits the SQL server. But when we execute the SQL server queries, when we execute the queries, when the query hits the SQL server engine, then the queries that contains the view will be executed faster compared to the other queries. And it takes less time for executing the query. Due to this, the traffic will be reduced. That is, if the more number of queries are there in the queue and most of the queries contains the view, then the traffic of the network will be reduced. And it shortens the SQL query. Of course, it shortens the SQL query because we are using views for creating a virtual table. That table contains only related columns. That is, it contains only required columns from the base table. So it reduces the query size. Supports to perform DML operations on related data. So here we can use data manipulation language operations on related data. That is, we can use update command. That is, we can update the table or the view to perform DML operations on the related data. It supports to generate summarized reports fastly. That is what, if we are looking for a particular requirement, if we are looking for a requirement where we are fetching the data from the relevant columns, then it will give the result in the summarized report format by using the view. That is, report, what it tells, report in the sense, report gives the insights that are very useful for the business user. It is not going to fetch all the details from the table. It is going to fetch only the relevant detail from the table that is extracted from the columns that are carrying the information that we are seeking for, or it is expected by the business users. So far we are telling about views, and we got an idea about view, what a view is. And now let us understand how views differs from table. Table is also a database object in the SQL Server, and table also stores the data, but how table is different from views, that we are going to understand by seeing the contrast of view over table. So let's start this. Tables. Tables contains the data. Table contains the data. It stores the data in the form of rows and columns. Whereas views, it is very interesting. Views does not contains data. When we create a view, it fetches the data from the base table. That we have to remember. Tables are limited. So we have a restriction, that is we have a restriction to create a tables. That is restriction in the sense we can create a limited number of tables, whereas views are unlimited. We can create any number of views on the table. The table which we are going to choose for creating the view, we call it as a base table. Independent object. Table is an independent object. Table does not depend on any other objects in the database. Table is completely independent, because when we create any procedure or function, in the procedure or function we use the tables, whereas tables does not use any procedure or functions. Tables can be created by writing a procedure, but still the table is independent. Once the table is created, it is completely independent. It can be used and it can be deleted, and it is independent. Whereas views are completely dependent. How it is dependent? Because previously we have seen that whatever the changes we are going to make with the tables, that will be reflected on the views as well. That is why views are dependent. Views are purely dependent on the base table, that is the table from where we have created the view. Table from where we have taken the columns and created the view. That is why views are dependent. We call it as a dependent object. Tables support DML operations on any data. As the table contains all the data, that is, it contains the columns that are present already there in the table, that are already exist in the table. So the DML operations on any data can be performed on the table. That is, how many number of columns will be present on the table. On all those columns, we can perform the DML operations. Whereas views, it supports to only related data. Suppose we have created a view based on the employee table. We have selected employee table as a base table, and we used couple of columns from the employee table, like employee ID, employee name, employee salary, employee department. So then we can perform DML operation only on these columns only, not on entire employee table, because we are picking only related tables. Due to this, it supports only related data. What? View supports only related data. Tables. It can be associated with any trigger. Tables are associated with any trigger. Triggers are the events. Triggers are the events when particular action executes, then triggers are invoked in the SQL Server. So in the case of views, it can be associated with only instead of trigger. Instead of trigger is one of the type of trigger, and it will be associated with views. And it can be associated only with the instead of trigger. Whereas in the case of tables, it can be associated with any trigger. Now moving on to the next slide. Types of views. what are the different types of views that are available? There are different types of views are there. First one is simple view. Second one is check option view. Third one is complex view. Fourth one is index view. So these are the four types of views, that is simple view, check option view, complex view, indexed view. And we have to remember simple view, check option view, and complex view are called as a standard views. What are those views? That is simple view, check option view, and then complex views are called as a standard views. So let us explore the types of views one by one. Simple view, a view which is created on a single table, refers to a single view, and it should not contain group functions, group by clause, distinct operator, joins, and mathematical expressions. So what is a simple view? Basically, a simple view is a view which is created on a single table. Only on one table we are going to create a simple view. And there are some restrictions for creating a simple view, that is that simple view, that is it should not contain a group function. Okay, there in the query there should not be any group functions or group by clause, and distinct operator should not be there, joins should not be there, and mathematical expression should not be there. That is, on simple query only we are going to use simple view, where in the simple view, in the simple query, we don't find any group by clause or group by function or distinct operator and mathematical expression. When a simple view is created, it should contain all mandatory columns of a base table. We have to remember that when we are creating a simple view, it must contain all mandatory columns of the base table. That is important. We have understood the concept of view, and now let us see what is the syntax for creating a simple view. It is very simple. As the name states, simple view, create view, and then view name. Create view statement we have to use for creating a view, create view, and then view name, and then with encryption or with schema binding, as we have to write select query, and then with check option we have to add. So in order to store order by class through select query into a view, it is must to enclosed top keyword. Suppose if you want to use order by class in the select query, then it must be enclosed by top keyword. This one we have to remember. When data definition language operations are performed on base object, they do not get reflected in view. We have to remember that when DDL operations, that is data definition language operations, if we are using any commands that are related to the data definition language operations are performed on the base object, they do not get reflected in view. To update the view, it should get refreshed using predefined procedure. So when we perform any DDL operations on the base table, then it will not be reflected on the view unless and until we refresh the view with the help of a predefined procedure. That predefined procedure, we are going to see it in the upcoming slides, what a predefined procedure is. So this is the query for creating a simple view, that is create view and then view name with encryption or with schema binding as is the keyword, and then select query. We have to write the select query, and later with check option we have to add. So once we start understanding the examples related with the simple view, we will understand the syntax also associated with the simple view. So to refresh the view, to refresh the view, what is the syntax? As we have discussed, whatever the DDL changes that we are going to make, that is data definition language operation commands that we are going to use on the base table, original table, will not be reflected on the views that are associated with the table unless and until we refresh the view. So now how we are going to refresh the view? With the help of a predefined procedure, we are going to refresh the view. So now we are going to see the refresh view syntax so that we can refresh the view in order to see the changes that are made on the base table. What is the syntax here for refreshing the view? sp underscore refresh view and then view name. This is the simple syntax for refreshing a view. What we have to use here? sp underscore refresh view and then view name. This is the syntax. For example, let us see how to create a simple view. Create view v1, create view v1. Okay, v1 is the name of the view. Okay, create view is the statement that is used to create a view. As create view v1 as select star from employee. We may get a doubt that where we are adding the with encryption and other option. These are running in the background. These will run in the background, and only the thing is we have to create a syntax. We have to create the view as follows. That is create view v1 as select star from employee. Select star from employee. That is, we are creating view v1 on the table employee where we are fetching all the columns from the table employee. So now how to get information about the view? How to get information about the view? The view what we have created v1, if we want to look information about that view, then what command we have to execute? That is sp underscore help v1. sp underscore help space v1. Once we type this command in the SQL Server, in the SQL Server Studio, then we will get the information, entire information about the view v1. And now delete from v1 where department number is equals to 10. So this is another example where we are deleting the department number 10. We are deleting the records that are present in the department number 10 with the help of a view v1. So we are not deleting the department record of 10 from the table employee, but instead of that we are using the view that is created on the table employee. So that is, next one is update from v1 where employee name is equals to null. Update from v1 where employee name is equals to null. Okay, so that is, we are trying to understand the different operations that are performed through the view onto the base table. That is, it may be a deleting any records from the table, or it may be updating any records from the table, or it may be inserting a new record into the table employee. So all these operations we are performing through the view that is created on the table employee, that emp. Okay, what is the view name? That is v1 is the view name. So insert v1, open parenthesis, that is employee number, employee name, salary, department number, and then we are inserting the values, that is 1001 comma x, that is enclosed in a single quote, which is a string, nothing but a string, because employee name is a string value. 5,000 is the salary, and then department number is 10. That is, here we are demonstrating how to insert a record with the help of a view. By taking help of a view, we are inserting the records into the table employee, that is v1. So like this, we are performing different operations on the base table by using the view created on the base table. That is, here the base table is employee, that is emp, and the view name is v1. Next example. alter table employee, add experience integer. What we are doing here, we are adding a new column to the table employee. We are adding new column called experience to the table employee. Okay, remember, no need to get confused here. What we are doing here is we are adding a new column to the table employee, that is experience. For that purpose, we are writing a query here, that is alter table emp add experience integer. Okay, so we are altering the table employee, and then we are adding a new column experience. In short, we have written it as a exp integer. And now what we are doing, we have added a new column to the table employee. So if we execute the query to fetch all the records from the table employee, that is select star from employee, then we will be able to see all the records in the table, and as well as the new column, that is experience, which is blank. If any data is inserted, then that data will be reflected in the exp column, that is in the experience column. But assume that we have not inserted any value into the exp column, so it is appearing it as a blank. That is fine. Now if we want to see the view, if I execute the view, then we will not be able to see the new column that is created in the table employee in the view v1. When we execute the view, when we try to execute the view that is created on the employee table, then we are not able to see the new column exp in the view v1. Why? Because we have to refresh the view v1, then only we will be able to see the newly added column onto the table emp. So what we are doing, so we are refreshing the view with the help of a procedure, that is sp underscore refresh view v1. What is the command here? That is sp underscore refresh view. Okay, sp underscore refresh view space, name of the view is v1. So once we refresh the view v1, then we will be able to see the exp column that is created on the table employee. And we have to remember that when we have created the view v1, we are fetching all the columns, we are using all the columns of the table employee. Because of that, we are able to see the newly added column in the v1. We are not using any particular columns from the table employee. We are using all the columns, and we are creating a view called v1. So we will be able to see the newly created column in the table employee emp once we refresh the view v1 with the help of a sp underscore refresh view command. So next is alter table employee drop column hire date. Okay, alter table employee drop column hire date. So we are dropping a column from the table employee, which is hire date. We have created a column, we have table that is already there, employee. So in this table, what we are doing, we are dropping a column, that is hire date column, we are dropping from the table employee. For that purpose only, we are writing a query, that is alter table employee drop column hire date. So once the column is dropped from the table employee, then once we execute the query to fetch all the records from the employee table, then hire date column won't be visible, or hire date column won't be there in the employee table. Okay, now select star from v1. It would be an error as a column is missing. Okay, so again what happens, after deleting the column hire date from the table employee, directly we are executing the view. That is, directly we are trying to fetch the view. Okay, view, that is what? V1. So if we are executing the query to fetch the data present in the view V1, then we are executing the query select star from V1, then it would be an error as column is missing because hire date is missing from the employee table. That's why it was giving the error. So what we have to do, how we have to overcome this? By refreshing the view again. So we have to refresh the view, then only we will able to see the changes that are done on the table employee. Okay, so we have to refresh the view, that is sp underscore refresh view space v1. Once we refresh the view v1, then we will be able to see the changes that are made on the table employee. So employee is a base table for view v1. Next we are going to another example where we are creating a view called v2 as select top for you employee number, employee name, salary, department number from employee order by salary. So as we have discussed in the previous slide, in our previous slides, for order by class, top keyword is must. Okay, if we are using order by class means then we have to use the top keyword, which is must. The question is why? Because the query, the syntax is designed in such a way that we have to use order by class for top keyword. Okay, for the top keyword. So that is why we are writing the query create view v2 as select top 5 EMP number, employee name, salary, department number from the employee order by salary. Okay, so this view will be created. That is which view? That is view v2 will be created, and it gives the result what we have written in the query. That is, it will create a top 5 records that contains the column employee number, employee name, salary, department number of the table employee, and it will arrange the salary of the employee in descending order. By default, it will arrange the salary of the employee in descending order. Next example, we are creating a view. Create view v3. We are creating a view v3 as select employee number, employee name, department number from employee where department number is equals to 10. We are creating a view v3. We are creating a view v3 where what we are doing here is we are creating a view v3 for storing only department number 10 employees records. For storing department number 10 employee records, we are creating a view v3. So what are the columns where we are using for storing the employee details here who are belongs to department number 10? We are using employee number, employee name, department number. These are the columns that we are using for storing the employee records into the view v3 who are belongs to the department number 10. Insert v3 values, which is we have created one v3 view and we are inserting the values into the v3 view that will reflect on the base table as well. So now check option view. The second one is what? Check option view. So far we have discussed about simple view, how to create a simple view, and while creating a simple view, what are the points we have to remember that we have seen. Okay, while creating a simple view, we didn't use any group function or group class. and we didn't use any mathematical expression as well, and we didn't use distinct keyword. So these are the points we have to remember when we are creating a simple view. So now we are coming to the check option view. Now we are going to discuss about check option view. So when this option is associated with a view, then it will check the condition specified at where class before data is inserted or updated into the base object. So why we are using the check option view? When we use check option view in the query, or when the view is associated with the check option, so then what it will do? Then it will check the condition first, okay, and then where this check option condition will be specified, it will be specified after the where class. So first it will check the condition that is mentioned in the query, and then it will allow us to perform insert update operation on the base object. Okay, then it will allow what? Then it will allow us to perform the insert update and then insert update operation on the base object. That is what check option view does. It is very simple. Any query that is associated with the check option or the any view that is associated with the check option, and the check option will be specified after the where class, and in the check option we are going to specify the condition. So first, once the query is executed that is related with the check option view, first it will check the condition and then it will allow us to insert the data or update the data to the base into the base object. So let's try to understand this with the help of an example more clearly. Create view V4. We are creating a new view called as a V4. Its name is V4. As select employee number, employee name from employee, where department number is equals to 10 with check option. So how this query is executed? So here the where class part is first executed. That is, here we can see the condition. The employees must be belongs to the department number 10. Okay. So it will check the base table. It will check the table. That is the original table employee. It will check whether the employees belongs to the record. Employees belongs to the department number 10. Then it will fetch the employee details. What employee details that we have specified in the query here? That is employee number, it will fetch, employee name, it will fetch from the employee table, and then it will start creating the new view called as a V4. So it will create a new view. So this is how we are using a check option view in the query for creating a view. Complex view. So that is about check option view, which is very simple. In the where class, we are using the condition, and before we insert or update any data to the base table, first it will check the condition and then it will allow us to insert or update the data into the original table or the base table, base object, we can see. That is about check option view that we have discussed. Now we are going to see complex view. A view is said to be a complex view when it is associated with any of the following. So complex view is a completely opposite of simple. Let's try to understand this. A view is said to be complex view when it is associated with any of the following. What are the following things? What are the following concepts? That is group by class. If it is associated with a group by class, group by functions, distinct operators, joins, mathematical expressions, by default, complex view is not updatable view. It is a read-only view, which is very, very important point here we have to remember. Complex view, once we create a complex view, it is only readable. We cannot update the complex view because it contains group, either it may contains group by class or group by functions, distinct operator or joins, or it may contain mathematical expressions. Due to all this reason, we are not able to update the complex view. We can create the complex view. Okay. If any of the view that we have created, if it is associated with the group by class, group by functions, or distinct operators, joins, mathematical expressions, then we call it as a complex view. Then we call it as what? Complex view. And complex view is only readable. We can only read the complex view. We cannot update the complex view. That we have to remember. So let us see the example. Let us try to understand the concept of complex view with the help of an example. So here we are creating a view V5. We are creating a new view called as a V5 as select department number, sum of salary. We are assigning an alias, total salary. In short, we are writing it as a tot sal from employee group by department number. So this is one example for the complex view. What we are doing here, we are writing a query. Okay, we are writing a query to create a complex view here. And what columns we are using? We are using department number, and here we are using the aggregate function, that is sum of salary. For sum of salary aggregate function, we are assigning a alias. We are assigning a alias because once we execute this query, the sum of salary column won't be having any header. The header will show the blank only. It will show the blank only. So instead of showing it as a blank, we are assigning a column alias total salary from employee group, from employee, and here we are using the group by function. So here we are using what? We are using, sorry, group by class we are using, group by department number. So ultimately what this query does, this query creates a view V5 where the V5 contains the department number wise aggregate salaries of the employee. Okay, it contains what? Department number wise aggregate salaries. For example, department number 10, how many number of employees are working in department number 10? Assume 3 employees. And one employee, all 3 employees getting the 10,000 salaries. Then their aggregate salary is 30,000. That is, as we are using some aggregate function, their salary is 30,000. Department number 20. How many employees are working here? 2 employees are working here. One employee is getting 5,000 and another employee is getting 7,000. So the total salary is what? Sum of both the salaries, both employees' salaries is 12,000. So here department 20 aggregate salary is 20. That is 20,000. Sorry, 12,000. Okay. That is we are using the summation function. That is sum aggregate function. So it gives the aggregate summation salary of the employee based on the department. Department wise aggregate summation salary it provides, this query provides, that is it creates the view on the department aggregation salary, summation salary. So the next example is create view V6. Create view V6. We are creating a new view called V6 as select distinct department number from employee. So this view is created to fetch the distinct employee numbers from the distinct department number from the employee. In case if there are duplicate department numbers are existing in the table, then this will filter out the duplicate department numbers by using distinct keyword. That is why we are using the distinct keyword here. So once the query is executed, the view V6 will be created, and that view V6 contains what? It contains the distinct department numbers. And the next example is create view V7 as select employee name, job, salary, and then salary into 12 from employee. So in this view, we are using the mathematical expression here. Okay. So what we are doing here, we are creating a view V7 that displays the employee name, job, salary, and their annual salary. It will display the annual salary as well. For that, we are creating a view here. And for creating this view, we are using the base table as a employee table. For all the examples, we are using the base table as a employee table. With the help of an employee table, we are creating a view. Next example is create view V8 as select employee number, employee name, job, department name, location from employee, department number where emp.department number is equals to department number dot department number, department dot department number. What's going on here exactly? So here we are performing a join operation. We are performing a join operation between two tables, that is employee table and then department table, and we are using view. So we are creating a view where in this view we are performing a join operation between the two tables, that is employee and then department. That is what we are looking for is we want to fetch some columns from the employee table and we want to fetch the columns from the department table, and we want to see these columns coming from employee table and department table as a single table. So due to this reason, what we are doing, we are performing a join operation here. We are creating a join. Okay, that is select employee number is coming from table employee, employee name is also coming from table employee, job, and then department name is also coming from employee, location is also coming from employee. Sorry, department name is coming from department table, location is coming from department table. So we are mentioning the table names, that is employee, department number, and in the where condition we are performing, we are in the where condition, in the where class we are specifying the joining condition. So what is the joining condition in the where class we are specifying? So for performing join operation between any two tables, we must have a common columns. Here the common columns between both the tables are department number. So we are using the department number as a common column here. Common columns are the department number which already exist in both the tables, employee table and then department table. So what we are doing, so we are using these two columns, but we cannot directly use these two columns. We have to access these columns with the help of their table names. That is EMP. EMP is the name of the table, and then dot department number. So the column department number of the table EMP can be accessed with the help of a dot operator, and then is equals to department is the table name dot department number. So department number of the table, department table, can be accessed with the help of a dot operator, and here we are performing a join operation, which is nothing but here we are performing a inner join operation. Okay, so here we are creating one inner join by using join operation. That is, so what we can say here is the view V8. So the view V8 contains join here. The view V8 contains the what? Once we execute the view V8, it shows the columns from both employee table and then department table. and then it shows the result. Okay. So what we have to understand here, the simple view and the complex view, where what are the concepts that we are not using in the simple view, all those concepts are used in the complex view. For creating a complex view, we are using all those concepts in the queries. That is the main difference here. So the next one is here. So now we are going to see some of the important commands, very important commands that are related to the views. Let us see what are those commands are. Suppose if we want to display the query stored in the view, then what we are doing, then we are using the command sp underscore help text, sp underscore help text, and then space view name. So if we are specifying sp underscore help text and then v1, then it will display all the information related to view v1. Okay, it will display the query that is stored in the v1. It will display the query that is stored in the view v1. To display the metadata of the view, we are using the command sp underscore help, and then name of the view. Metadata means what? It's a data about the data. Okay, that is, it gives the how many number of columns are there in the view and what data types that views contains. All that information it will display by using sp underscore help command. Okay, so that is what the metadata is, and how many kilobytes space it is taking, all that information it will display. To display a list of views that are dependent on a table. Suppose we want to see, or if we are interested in seeing what are the tables, that views are dependent on. Okay, if we are using some views and we want to see on which table these views are created, on what are the tables it is dependent on, then what we are using the command sp underscore depends and then name of the table. Okay, sp underscore depends and then table name or the view name. Okay, suppose if you want to see what are the views that are created on a particular table, then we can execute sp underscore depends and then name of that table, the base table name we can give, and it will display the list of views that are associated with the table. Or if you want to see what table is used for creating a particular view, then we can give sp underscore depends and then view name. Okay, so list of columns, table names that are enclosed in view through select query. Okay, we have to remember that the list of columns, table names that are enclosed in view through select query. And the next is encrypted view. What an encrypted view is? When a view is encrypted, it does not support to display the text which is stored in a view. We have to understand that it's a kind of security thing. That is, when a view is encrypted, it does not support to display the text which is stored in a view. Okay, so we are not able to see any text associated with the view if the view is encrypted. Encrypted means what? It will be hidden. The text that is written will be hidden by using some techniques. Those techniques are nothing but the encryption techniques. SQL Server does not support decryption of a view. Suppose the view is encrypted and if you want to decrypt that, but SQL Server does not support to decryption of a view. To create this view, it should be associated with encryption. If you want to create encryption of a view, then it must be associated with the encryption. Okay. The query which is stored in encrypted view can be altered. We can alter the query which is stored. Okay, the query which is stored in encrypted view can be altered. That can be altered. So let us see the example for the encrypted view. So here we are creating a view V9 with encryption. We are creating a view V9. We have to remember that we have to mention with encryption keyword. Then only it is understood that we are creating a encrypted view. Okay. Create view V9. Okay. Create view V9 with encryption as, and then select star from employee. Select star from employee. So we created a encrypted view. Okay. Where what happens in the encrypted view? Where it does not support to display the text which is stored in a view. Okay. Schema binding view. What it is? Schema binding view. Rules to be followed for creating schema binding view. Okay, let us see what are the rules to be followed for creating a schema binding view. Schema binding view will not support to store select query with star selection operator. It will not support to store the select query. In simple words, we can understand that schema binding view will not support to store select query. Obviously, select query will contain the star operator. It is must that table name specified in select query should be preceded by schema name. That is the point here. What is the point here is the schema name. It is must that the table name specified in select query, the table what we are going to specify in the select query, it must be preceded by the schema name. We have to mention the associated schema of a table in the select query, where it is preceded by the table name, where it contains the table name. The advantage of creating schema binding view is that it will restrict the dropping of the base objects. Why we are creating a schema binding view? What is the advantage of creating a schema binding view is that it avoids the dropping the base data object. That is the advantage is what? It helps to avoid. Okay. The advantage of creating schema binding view is that it will restrict the dropping of the base object. Okay. It will avoid the dropping the base objects. There are some situations where we want to keep some tables for longer time, and if the tables are associated with any views, if the views are created by using those tables, then we have to keep those tables for longer time if the application or the project which is running is very important. Okay. And we want to keep them permanently for some time in our SQL Server. But if those tables are deleted due to some reason, then the views associated with that table will also be deleted. Okay. View is deleted means what could be the problem? As we know, if the tables contains the large volume of data that deals with a large number of columns, then we are creating the views for easier access to the table and for accessing the relevant data. So if those base tables are deleting, then the views that are associated with those tables will also be deleted, or they will throw the error message. To avoid this problem, we are using a schema binding view, where we are creating a schema binding views that will restrict the dropping of the base objects. Okay. That is the main concept of creating a schema binding view. So what is the syntax for creating a schema binding view? Okay. Create view v10 with schema binding. And we have to remember that we have to use with schema binding keyword. This is very important. If we are using with schema binding keyword, then only it is understood that we are creating a schema binding view. If we are using with encryption, then only it is understood that we are creating an encrypted view. Okay, so here we are creating schema binding view. Create view v10 with schema binding as select star from employee. Okay, as select star from employee. Okay. So if I am dropping a table department, then I will get the error. Okay. If I'm dropping a table department, then I will get the error. Why I will get the error? Because that table DEPT department is associated with a schema binding view. So schema binding view is restricting the deletion of table department. Due to this reason, it is throwing the error. Indexed view. What is indexed view? These views will provide the improved performance than standard views. Okay. Indexed views provides what? Indexed views provides the improved performance than standard views. These views, when gets created, should be attached with schema binding, and there should be an existing of cluster index. So when we create an indexed view, these indexed views must be associated with what? It must be associated with schema binding view. Okay. And these are, it will provide the improved performance compared to the standard views. These views will provide their importance, especially when a query contains aggregated functions. So these indexed views plays very important role when the query contains the aggregate functions. If a query contains aggregate functions, it includes following steps for execution of a query. So what are those following steps? For example, if you are executing a query, select department number, count star from employee group by department number. So count is what? Count is an aggregate function. Count star indicates what? Count star is an aggregate function. It counts all the records present in the table, and it returns the number of records that are present in the table. That is what count star function does. So first one, what it will do, that is indexed view. That is, if a query contains aggregate function, it includes following steps for the execution of a query. What are those following steps? These steps we are understanding with the help of a query, that is select department number, comma, count star from employee group by department number. Okay. First step, what it does, it checks the syntax. Okay. It checks the syntax. And the second step is it compiles the query. Okay. And the third one is execution plan is generated. Every query is associated with the execution plan. Okay. Execution plan means in the query, what are the keywords that has to be executed first, and then what keyword has to be executed second. That means it will prioritize the commands that are present in the query. What are the commands that has to be executed first, and then second, third, and vice versa. What is the sequence that has to be followed for executing a query? That is sequence of commands to be executed when the query is executed. Okay. So this will be basically done by the SQL Server engine. Execution plan will be done. And the query gets executed. Query gets executed. What happens then? Takes the rows of a database into a buffer. It will take the rows of into the buffer. Okay. And it sorts the data. It creates a group on each department number, and count function will visit to each group to count the number of employees. Why it goes to the each group? Because we are using the group by function. Group by clause we are using. Due to this, count function will visit to each group to count the number of employees, and then it displays the output. Then what it will do, it will displays the output. So all these steps are avoided by creating indexed views. So it is a lengthy process, whatever the steps we have discussed so far. In order to avoid all these steps, what we are doing is very simple. We are creating the indexed views. So in today's tutorial, we have learned a lot of important concepts in the SQL Server, and we focused on views. That is, as the topic we are discussing today was the views. We discussed about views, what are the views, and what are the different types of views. Okay, and we have seen a couple of examples where we have demonstrated how exactly views are created on the base table and how these views acts when we perform any DML operations or DDL operations on the base table. All these things we have seen in today's tutorial. And view is very important topic and as well as very interesting topic, because nowadays in the corporate world, as the data is generating and we are maintaining all those data with the help of a databases. And if the table contains a large volume of data and it holds more number of columns in the table, then it is very difficult for us to fetch all those columns at a time by writing the queries. So if you want to access those columns, if you want to create a summarized reports by fetching relevant columns from the table, then view is the best option for creating in the SQL Server, where it will give us the summarized report. And with the help of these summarized reports, we can derive the useful insights for our business users. And we have seen the different types of views like simple view, check option view, encrypted view, schema binding view, okay, and then complex view, okay. So these are the different types of views that acts on the data that is present on the base tables. And simple view, where we are using the simple query. On simple query, we are applying this simple view where it does not contain any aggregate functions or group by class, group by function, distinct operator, mathematical expression. It does not contain any of these things. Whereas complex view is completely opposite of what? It is completely opposite of the simple view. Okay. So in order to demonstrate these types of view, we have seen so many examples in this tutorial that is very helpful for us to understand about the views and working of the views and their types, how they behave when we create it. And to demonstrate the complex view, we have seen so many examples on the complex view where we have created a view to demonstrate how exactly it handles the distinct operator and how exactly it fetches the data of a particular department and how exactly it fetches the department data with the help of a group by functions. Okay, how exactly it fetches the data when we are using the mathematical expression in the query for creating the view. All those things we have seen in today's tutorial. For having more clarity and for understanding, we will deep dive into the practical tutorials where we are going to execute all these examples and we will have a solid understanding of the concept of views. Thank you for your patience and thanks for listening. That's all for the day. Thank you, everyone.